Hello, Zeliha. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It's an honor for me to have you here in our podcast. First of all, may I kindly request you to briefly introduce yourself and provide us with some background about your experience, especially in the field of laboratory accreditation.
Okay. My name is Zeliha Yıldırım. I graduated from University of Ankara in Food Science and Technology Department in 1986. After graduated, I started work in Ministry of Agriculture in Food Control Laboratory in Ankara. And I worked there almost 20 years. During that time, I worked as an analyst, department manager, and finally quality manager and technical deputy director. I resigned from the ministry in 2008. Then I had my company and I'm giving training and consultancy about that. I'm dealing with the ISO 17025 since 2000. And since 2006, I am a technical assessor and lead assessor for 17025. Also, I'm dealing with proficiency testing, and since 2012, I'm also lead assessor about this standard.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. My first question is that considering the changes in 2017 version of ISO 17025 standards, and based on your experience in the assessment of laboratories, I would like to ask you to provide us with some information about what are the main changes in the assessment process from the assessment point of view in the assessment of laboratories in 2017 version compared with the previous version?
Actually, assessment process are same, but of course, standard is changed. And naturally, our assessment style is changed. In new version of the standard, there are many differences, many changes. And main changes is process approach. And that's why during the assessment, we have to check the process. And activities are how affect the laboratory activities, laboratory performance. Also, documentation is getting low. In this standard, does not require too heavy documentation. And this approach sometimes causes problems, sometimes makes it makes easy. It changes according to laboratory. And another point is risk assessment. Risk assessment totally new topic for laboratories, also for assessors. Because laboratory does not have any idea. Most of the laboratory does not have any idea. Also 9001. And according to this approach, we have to make an risk assessment. I mean, as a laboratory, we have to make an risk assessment, and as an assessor, we have to check these activities. What are they doing about that? Also, impartiality is very important in new standard. Sampling topic is new standard, the new version of the standard. In the previous standard, they do not mention about the sampling, but right now any company have an accreditation about sampling, of course related with the laboratory. If you get accreditation about sampling, that company has to relate it with any calibration or testing laboratory. Otherwise, accreditation body does not give any accreditation for sampling. Standard content is changed. In the previous version, there was a management requirements and technical requirements. But now, according to process approach, general requirements, structural requirements, process requirements, resource requirements, and management system requirements. We have to check all of these topics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in the new standard, in previous standard, they do not mention anything about IT technologies. All of the records was in paper, but right now we can keep all of the records in IT. We can use computers. We can sign our records in electronically. New version let this performance. Also, vocabulary section is updated in standard, and therefore we have to check laboratory for this terminology, and we have to ask laboratory, do they know the new terminology or not? And then, as an assessor, we have to know this terminology. One of these terminology is inter-laboratory comparison, and another is proficiency testing. Most of the time, this terminology, these two terminologies make some confusions. Most of the laboratory thinks like that. If there is a proficiency testing, okay, we can participate proficiency testing. If there is no proficiency testing, they try to organize inter-laboratory comparison studies between them. They think inter-laboratory comparison is lower than proficiency testing. Actually, proficiency testing is kind of laboratory comparison. That's why laboratory should know these terminologies. And during the assessment, also we check these activities, these knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. Based on what you said, you mean that this changes in the philosophy of the standard from a prescriptive approach to a risk-based approach sometimes makes your job easier as an assessor, sometimes makes it more difficult, depends on the laboratory culture and depends on the nature of the work that you are assessing. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
My next question is that how this risk-based approach in the current version of ISO 17025 standard should be considered in planning and performing the assessment of laboratories, and how do you apply this risk-based approach in your job as an assessor?
Yeah, mainly standard does not address any documents for risk assessments, because this is lab responsibility. And as an assessor, first we have to check for their risk assessment process, and we have to check for their identified risks. These are the main topics for us, I mean, as an assessor. Standard requires risk assessment for 3 topics: for impartiality, for decision rules, and for non-conforming works. For these 3 topics, laboratory has make and risk assessments. And as an assessor, basically, I have to check for these topics. And laboratory has necessary or suitable risk assessment. If they do that, that's okay. Other decisions, I mean, they do not have to make an risk assessment for all of the topics of the standard. It's not necessary. As an assessor, I have to check for 3 topics. Others depends on the laboratory, depends on their activities. I have to look for that way. Otherwise, if I make an obligation, if I say you have to do make a risk assessment for all of the topics, it's not suitable. It's not suitable.
Okay, thank you very much. Many years ago, okay, you want to continue? Sorry, go on.
Risks are changed lab to lab. One topic is not for risk for one of the laboratory, but that topic can be risk for another laboratory. We have to take care of this situation.
You mean that every laboratory has its own unique identity, and yes, they cannot copy and paste the risk from one lab to the other lab, even if they are in the same industry?
No, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Many years ago, I participated in a training course, and the trainer used an expression called mental notes. And he referred to certain situations that during assessment you observe as an assessor, but you cannot record them. It's something about the reaction of the people, it's something about their attitude towards the assessment and the culture of the laboratory. This might affect but these mental notes might affect the conclusion and findings of an assessment. Can you please provide us with some examples of these so-called mental notes? And based on your experience, have you ever been in a situation that you cannot record something, but you know that it shows a weakness in the laboratory, or on the other side, it's a positive point for the laboratory?
Yes. During the assessment, mainly I have to observe personal behaviors, because I have to check them. I have to observe them. If the personnel be hesitant or aggressive, or sometimes when I ask a question to the staff check for the boss, check for the manager to give an answer. And sometimes personnel give the answer, manager face is changing. It's getting aggressive, or it gives some reactions. And also I have to during the observation of the personnel, I'm checking for they try to hide something, they try to do something unusual. For example, I request any record. They bring that record almost 15 minutes later or half an hour later. If it happens 2 times, 3 times, then I do stop. I say stop, because they produce records during the assessments. That's why I have to be very observative. I have to check the stuff. And also laboratory staff try to give long arguments. They try to
waste your time.
Yes, exactly. And they try to protest constantly. And during the assessment, I have to handle these kind of things.
Yeah. How these things might affect the conclusion, your conclusion of the assessment? Do you think that they are important as objective evidences, or not as important as objective evidences?
I try to find the different solutions. One time in one laboratory, manager was answering all of my questions. He did not let the staff to answer the questions. I'm asking the question to the A staff, but manager answered. And I request the manager, please, I ask the question to the different staff, please, he answers my question. But he persisted his behavior. Then during the lunchtime, I reached to my lead assessor. That was that time I was a technical assessor. I reached my lead assessor. I asked him, please, can you call the lab manager, unit manager, and you are lead manager, you can ask question to him. And then he called him, lead assessor, my lead assessor called that manager. And
you went to the lab.
Yes, I tried to, I make a real assessment that time. And that time I get my objective evidence.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There are some situations called extraordinary situations which might happen during an assessment. And as far as I know, ILAC is writing a document about these extraordinary situations. And we have a mutual experience, if you remember, during your
first assessment.
Yes, that the laboratory did not let us visit the laboratory for one day. How an assessor should manage such situation, and how should he deal with this situation as an assessor?
In your situation,
I mean that how flexible should we be in such situations?
If the assessment is about ISO 17025, if for directly lab assessment, that time, if laboratory does not let us to the laboratory, okay, your selection, and I do not make an assessment because laboratory requests an assessment. Accreditation body does not go to the assessment for a mandatory. Laboratory requests an assessment. If laboratory does not let us our visit, okay, your choice. I do not make an assessment, and I report this situation to the accreditation body. This is the short way, and this is suitable reaction for an assessor. As a long way, I try to different way, and I try to connect with the laboratory manager. I ask him, why? What is the reason? You invited us for assessment. Why you do not let us visit your laboratory? According to his answer, I try to make an action, and I try to find a solution. But there's one problem in this long way. During the trying to find a solution, we lose time because this is a one-day assessment and half day spent with for try to connect with manager. And I can make just half day assessment and it's not suitable.
You mean that there is no specific response to such situations? It depends on the laboratory, the situation, and the standard that we are assessing, and there might be different solutions to manage such extraordinary situations. Am I right?
Yes. If in a short time I try to find a solution, it's okay. I make an assessment, but it takes too long to find a solution. I do not make an assessment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. My next question concerns classification of assessment findings. And as far as I know, there is no global approach between the accreditation bodies, and each accreditation body has its own policy for this classification. But my question is that, is it possible that the same nonconformity is considered as major in one laboratory and minor in another laboratory, depending on the overall condition of the laboratory, the stage of the accreditation process, I mean initial accreditation or surveillance assessments, or the nature of other findings, and the same nonconformity is minor in one case and major in another case.
Yeah.
Is it possible, or what would be your comment?
Of course, it's possible. It's possible, but no matter what kind of nonconformity, minor or major, laboratory has to show same attention. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Minor or major, it doesn't matter. If laboratory says, this is a minor nonconformity, okay, and it does not pay attention for that nonconformity, it's unsuitable. They have to take care same attention. Mainly, when I write a nonconformity, I check for overall conditions of the laboratory. First, I think this nonconformity affect laboratory performance or not. If that nonconformity affects laboratory performance, it's a major nonconformity, but it does not affect laboratory performance, I can say that's a minor nonconformity. Yeah, its approach should be that way. Yes, nonconformity, how affect the laboratory performance. According to that, we decide the classification of the nonconformity.
And sometimes I have encountered a case that in one assessment, the assessor preferred to put all of the nonconformities as major in order to notify the laboratory about how important their situation and how critical is the situation. But he told me that if it was another laboratory, I would issue these nonconformities as minor because they need to be more careful about the situation of their management system. Am I right? It is something common in assessment.
Yes. If there is in the laboratory, lots of minor nonconformities, that time I say, yes, I have to say, I have to make a classification as a major, because I have to pay attention for their nonconformities. Yeah, but no matter what kind of nonconformity, they have to pay attention same.
Okay, thank you very much. My next question is that we talked about the changes in the 2017 version of ISO 17025 standard, that it makes your job sometimes more difficult or easier considering the risk-based approach, and that the fact that prescriptive requirements do not exist anymore, and laboratories have more freedom in how to implement the requirements of the standards without having some documented information to show as a proof. I had an experience in a laboratory that they said that, okay, there is no requirement that each internal audit cycle covers all the departments, so we prefer to put our focus on more important departments in the laboratory and do not make any internal audit for one department. I would like to have your comments about this and how it might affect the assessment effectiveness.
Everything depends on the laboratory conditions, laboratory performance. Because if laboratory make an activities consistently, everybody knows everything, everybody perform activities in same way, that's okay. Documentation getting low. And we decide the situation during the assessment. Because, for example, for calibration, calibration certificate, control criteria, one of the laboratory does not have any documentation. Laboratory staff make a certificate evaluation, and they know the which standard will they use or which external document will they use. They know that. They know everything. but there's no documentation, and they do activities very well. Everything is okay. Okay, that's okay, no problem. But in another laboratory, there is a documentation for calibration control criteria, but just quality manager knows this document. Others does not know. Other technical staff does not have any idea about the control criteria. That time, there is a documentation, but technical staff does not know. That's unsuitable. That's very big, very major non-conformity. For example, some of the laboratories does not have method instructions. They use directly external standard. Most of the external standards are ISO standards are in English. Technical staff has to know that method standard. If all of the technical staff know the English, and if they when they read the ISO standard, if they understand the content, that's okay. They do not have to make and write and method instructions. But if some of the staff does not understand the English ISO standards, and they have to write down method instructions. That's why we decide the situation during the assessments. We check the overall conditions, especially technical staff.
Okay, many of the issues that we have talked about so far are case sensitive. It means, I mean that it depends on the laboratory, it depends on the case that you are assessing, and for each case, there should be a different solution.
Exactly. For example, another example, sometimes laboratory prepare also instrument instructions. For example, HPLC. When you get HPLC, they have a lots of instructions, 3 or 4 instruction books, manual books. Everything is in those books, those manuals. But as a laboratory, I try to prepare HPLC instructions. And it's 3 or 4 pages. None of the technical staff does not read instrument instructions. They read instrument manuals.
Okay, I understand. My next question is that imagine a situation in which you go for a surveillance assessment of a laboratory, and you notice that there are major deviations in their system, and all the time the response is that the previous assessor who came to our laboratory said everything is fine, there is no problem, and you notice that there might be some problems with the previous assessment. In one of our experiences, the assessor became very angry about all the time. They said, okay, the previous assessor didn't note this. And he said, okay, I apologize on behalf of my previous colleague, but these are major deviations, and I have to do my job perfectly. How do you handle such a situation? And please let us also know the importance of assessors calibration within a certain accreditation body.
During the assessment, we make a random sampling. Especially for one-day assessment. For one-day assessment, we cannot check all of the records. We cannot check all of the documents. That's why we do random assessment. If previous assessor make a mistake during the assessment, I do not say like that. I say we do random sampling. That's why previous assessor didn't see that non-conformity. It can happen because we do random sampling. I do not apologize for previous assessor. That's not suitable. And I specify my non-conformity. It can happen. Also, classification of calibration of assessors are very important. Everybody's knowledge level are different. But we do not forget this. All of us human. We can make any mistake. That's normal. But for example, for TÜRKAK, TÜRKAK organized lots of meetings or trainings for calibration of the assessors. And during that time, we share our knowledge and we say our mistakes. Of course, we do not mention names. We do speak about the cases. And during that meetings, we realize our mistakes as an assessors. And we try to find those things. Also, laboratories, we make an assessment in laboratories. But also, assessors are assessed. By who? By laboratories. If laboratory know their job very well, they can assess assessors.
Okay, that's
if
very
laboratory
nice.
does not know their job, they can say nothing. Yeah. That's why laboratory has to know their job very well.
Oh, you mean there's a mutual assessment? Laboratory and the assessor, they assess each other from different point of views.
Actually, laboratory does not assess the assessor, but laboratory can evaluate the assessors when if they know their job.
Okay. My last question that I would like to ask if it is possible for you to provide us some tips on how to have a more effective assessment according to ISO 17025 2017 version. What points should we have in mind as an assessor in order to have a more effective assessments?
Mainly, assessors should know standard very well. Before assessment, assessors should review all of the lab documents. That's the main point. If do not review the lab documents, you cannot make an efficient assessment before the assessment. We have to work hard. We have to read lab documents. Also, during the assessment, assessor should be observer, should listen the environment. And also, assessor should be impartiality. Some assessors, during the assessment, make changes from the laboratory according to your own system. I mean, laboratory prepare the document or form according to their style, but assessor request, no, change this form to this format. Assessor should not
provide consulting services to that.
Yes, do not provide consulting services, yes. Shortly, these tips.
Okay, Zeliha, thank you very much. If there is anything that you would like to add to our discussion, I would be very happy to have your final comments.
Thank you very much for interview. Actually, I get a little bit excited about that. During this pandemic conditions, everything is in online. Face-to-face interviews or face-to-face training assessment is different. Online is totally different. And if I made a mistake, I apologize. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. It has been always being with you is a learning opportunity for me. I hope that this pandemic is over soon and we will meet each other face to face. It would be a more effective training session for me. I really appreciate your presence here in our podcast, and I wish you health and a very good time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.